Quote the Ravens. Maxx Crosby. Friday night, about 9:15 p.m. Eastern time. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm watching sports. Candidly, I'm getting ready to go to bed because I'm exhausted as the father of a young child. And I see the news break that the Baltimore Ravens trade for star Las Vegas Raiders pass rusher Maxx Crosby. And I absolutely love it. And credit to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders held firm. They get the 2 first-rounders for Maxx Crosby. That's a nice bit of business from the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is one of those trades, whether it's sports or life. And sometimes you look at a trade in sports or life, and you immediately know that one side is absolutely getting hosed. You don't need the benefit of hindsight. You don't need to see how it plays out. You immediately know that one team has gotten the better of the other, that one team has absolutely fleeced the other. Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. In no universe was that going to be a trade that ever went well for the Dallas Mavericks, and of course it didn't. How about once upon a time in Major League Baseball, a trade so bad that it made an episode of Seinfeld? Jay Buhner to the Seattle Mariners for my New York Yankees in exchange for Ken Phelps. Or if we're going to talk about the television world, Charlie Sheen leaves 2.5 Men and in comes Ashton Kutcher. The show became unwatchable at that point. That's a trade where you know immediately, not going to work out. This trade, though, Maxx Crosby from the Raiders to the Ravens. Now, can it go poorly for one of the teams? Of course. Crosby could get hurt. I hope that doesn't happen. The Raiders could absolutely screw up the draft picks. Of course that could happen. But on paper, it's a grand slam. And it's a grand slam for both teams. And we'll start with the Baltimore Ravens. And I give this team, I give general manager Eric DeCosta, I give head coach Jesse Minter so much credit for making this move. You know, if you've been watching this show, listening to the show for any period of time, you know that for years, not months, not weeks, not year, singular, years, plural. Put a Z on the end of that bitch if you want to get real Gen Z with it. I've been saying for a long ass time, the Baltimore Ravens need to try something different. And said the same thing, by the way, about the Buffalo Bills, and there's a corollary here that we will make between Baltimore and Buffalo coming up in a little bit. The Ravens needed to move on from head coach John Harbaugh, and the Baltimore Ravens needed to challenge their status quo. Because, yes, Baltimore every year enters the season with a healthy Lamar Jackson, and the upside is to go 15-2, 14-3. For Lamar Jackson to win Most Valuable Player. And we have seen the Baltimore Ravens be the sultans of spreadsheets, the excellence of EPA, the dominators of DVOA. Man, you talk to any NFL stat nerd, and they will basically describe this season notwithstanding, not included, will describe this era of Ravens football like they're some combination of the 72 Dolphins and the 2007 Patriots. Oh, they're one of the best teams of all time. But yet, what happens every single January? They fall short. And usually in soul-crushing, heart-breaking fashion. So I love this for the Baltimore Ravens. Oh my God, how could you move on from John Harbaugh? He's such a winner. And to be clear, and I've said this a million times, I think John Harbaugh is an awesome coach. I'm happy that he's the head coach of my favorite football team, the New York Football Giants. I absolutely love it. But you know what? Don't make the playoffs last year? Can't get over the hump with Lamar Jackson? You're never firing the MVP quarterback? He had to go. And now, this idea that, the Ravens. Like we hold this organization to such a high standard. Never traded a first-round pick for a player. Oh, they can't do that. They've never done it before. How could they do it? How about because they can't win? Because they can't get over the hump. So the Baltimore Ravens are trying something different. And you have to love that because what they were doing in the past absolutely wasn't working. 2 first-round picks for star pass rusher Maxx Crosby. And I will say, for what the Baltimore Ravens did with this trade, the same thing about what I said about the LA Rams and the haul that they gave to the Kansas City Chiefs for cornerback Trent McDuffie. And it's really easy. F them picks. F them. F them. The window is open now for the Baltimore Ravens. Right now. And the AFC is wide open. Look at what we saw on Conference Championship Sunday in the AFC. A Patriots team that was clearly over its skis, and credit to them, versus the Denver Broncos. And you want to tell me the AFC isn't open? And the Baltimore Ravens shouldn't be pushing chips into the middle of the table and trying to go all in with Lamar Jackson set to be 29 years old? It's an awesome move for the Baltimore Ravens. A needed move for the Baltimore Ravens to change up the status quo, to do something different. I absolutely love it. And now you give Jesse Minter, who, and for people that don't know, Minter kind of thought to be not maybe the same as, and it's tough to say this now because Mike Macdonald just won a Super Bowl with Seattle, but kind of talked about in the same hushed, revered tones that Mike Macdonald has talked about as a defensive coach. And now you give him this chess piece to play with in Maxx Crosby, who, if he's able to stay healthy and the Ravens are able to have a run of postseason success, Maxx Crosby is going to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's his upside, is 2 first-round picks for a Hall of Fame pass rusher. Someone who can get after the quarterback. Someone who can stop the run. Someone who can set the edge. And someone who, and look, like the Raiders, kind of, we always say, like, who's a prototypical Raider? Maxx Crosby's the prototypical Raider. I think the Ravens fall under that umbrella as well. Where you're telling me that Maxx Crosby wouldn't have fit in on the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed-led Ravens defenses? That Maxx Crosby to you doesn't feel like a Baltimore Raven? And now you add Maxx Crosby to a defense in Baltimore that includes Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins and Malachi Starks. Is Nnamdi Madubuike going to be back for the Baltimore Ravens? Remember him? Absolute stud defensive lineman, neck injury last year, and he goes down, and that's when things kind of went south for the Ravens defense last year. Kind of feels like to me, and I don't know this for a fact, do the Ravens make this trade for Maxx Crosby if they felt like Madubuike wasn't going to come back? We'll see. Kind of feels like a good sign to me. We'll find out in the days and weeks and months to come. Now, I'm not trying to paint the Baltimore Ravens as this absolute juggernaut. I do think they're going to win the AFC North. I feel really good about that. But I'm not saying that this is going to be a team that's going to roll out of bed and win 13 games. I'm not trying to insinuate that. The Ravens have some issues still on the roster, even after the trade for Maxx Crosby. Tyler Linderbaum, their star center, probably not coming back. We'll see. But he's going to get a huge deal wherever he signs. Going to be the highest paid center in the NFL. You need another interior offensive lineman. You got to get a wide receiver. They may lose Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler at tight end. Can Derrick Henry continue to defy Father Time and keep it rolling? So the Ravens absolutely have question marks. They are far from a lock to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. But when you have one of those quarterbacks, which the Ravens do, who can win MVP in any year and nobody would be surprised, you maximize that window. You do what you can to get that team over the hump. And the Ravens have done that here. Now, there will be people that say, and there's no way of disputing it, and we'll do the Chargers a little later in the show, and it's kind of the same thing with the Chargers. Not exactly the same, not apples to apples, but you'll understand the comparison. That for critics of the Baltimore Ravens, they will say, okay, great. You got Maxx Crosby. And let's say, and by the way, he will be the best Ravens edge rusher since Terrell Suggs left the team following the 2018 season. Like, that's what this is. Like, let's be clear about that. This is the best Ravens edge rusher since T. Sizzle left the Baltimore Ravens. You may say, I don't care who they have on defense. I don't care if they also sign Trey Hendrickson. And I don't care if Tyler Linderbaum comes back. And I don't care if Mike Evans signs on a cheap deal. Doesn't look like Mike Evans is going back to Tampa. You may say you don't trust Lamar Jackson in a big spot. And there's nothing that I can say that will convince you otherwise, because he hasn't gotten it done in the big spot. But I'll say the same thing about Lamar that I say about Josh Allen. You are never firing the MVP quarterback. So you change the coach, which both teams did, and you try to make moves to fortify the rest of the roster in the hope that when you get back to January, this could be your year. You don't just pack it in and say, well, Lamar's had these playoff failures in the past. 100-yard pick six against Buffalo. The AFC Championship game, Humpty Dumpty-sized egg against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Mark Andrews dropped 2-point conversion against Buffalo. Like, just because you failed in the past doesn't mean you give up the future. You keep going. You keep trying. You keep banging on the door until you eventually break through. And the Ravens are trying to do that here with Maxx Crosby. In the same way, by the way, that the Buffalo Bills are doing that with the trade for DJ Moore. And DJ Moore and Maxx Crosby, in terms of on-field impact, not the same thing. But look at what Buffalo's done. And this has always been the corollary. The two teams I've grouped together, the Bills and the Ravens. Allen and Lamar, same draft class. Same head coach for both of them since they entered the league. 0 Super Bowl appearances between the two of them. And both wisened up this offseason and moved on from two really good coaches because you had to change the status quo. Buffalo goes out and adds DJ Moore, and it's basically now they signed Connor McGovern to play center, where it's kind of like the same offense as last year, except now you have DJ Moore. And you move on from Sean McDermott. Like, I like Buffalo more than I did last season, where I'm not surprised that the Bills went to the playoffs. I thought they'd go to the playoffs. I like the Bills way more now as a potential Super Bowl threat next year. And I also like the Baltimore Ravens way more as a Super Bowl threat heading into next year. Awesome stuff from two teams that kept getting their brains beaten in January, that are trying to do something different. Whether it works or not, I love the roll of the dice and the swing of the bat by the Baltimore Ravens to bring in a monster pass rusher in Maxx Crosby. 2 first-rounders. If you're the Baltimore Ravens, F dem picks. But if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, you need them picks. You got to get them picks. So I love this for the Raiders. The Raiders held firm and they got their 2 first-rounders. And now, by virtue of this trade, the Raiders will pick 1st and 14th in this year's NFL draft in the first round. And we know that Fernando Mendoza is going to be the first overall pick. And now you have an opportunity to supercharge your rebuild with these extra picks. The Raiders play in an impossible division with the Chiefs, with the Chargers, and the Broncos. It's going to take some time. At the start of a new regime here with Klint Kubiak taking over as the team's head coach. It's going to take some time. And like I kept saying, and I said it during the season also, it made less than 0 sense for the Raiders to hold on to Maxx Crosby, who's going to be 29 this year, when you're embarking on what could be and will likely be a long rebuild. So the Raiders maximizing the return for Maxx Crosby. This is an awesome, awesome, awesome trade for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I know if you're a Raiders fan, it's tough to get fully excited about this right now. Because Maxx Crosby was a great Raider. And, what he brought to the culture, and that he literally plays every play. And he's the first guy in and he's the last guy out. I know it hurts to lose Maxx Crosby. And I know it sucks knowing that Maxx Crosby never won really in Las Vegas or in Oakland with the Raiders. But this was an essential move. And one that was needed to push the Raiders forward. Now, they have to pick the right players. But this trade has given them more bites at the apple to make that happen. I love it for Baltimore, and I love it for Las Vegas. Last note on this trade from the Raiders' perspective. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler snuck something in this weekend that I think flew under the radar for a lot of people. A lot going on in the world of sports, right? What Jeremy Fowler said was that Tom Brady would not have traded Maxx Crosby to the New England Patriots. Fowler's exact line was, there's no way Brady would have traded Crosby to Mike Vrabel. Now, we know that Brady is obviously beefing with Robert Kraft, and he's beefing with the Patriots. Remember, saying no dog in the fight prior, which is a weird comment, right, prior to the Super Bowl. And that's fine. You can have some beef with the Patriots. Like, whatever. Things happen in life. No problem. No big deal. But if you're going to let that get in the way of business, I think there's a big-time issue here. Now, if Fernando Mendoza's good, like, none of this is going to matter because they'll have the quarterback. And when you have the franchise quarterback, he's going to make, like, look at Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. Like, clearly a poorly run organization, but when Burrow's healthy, they're awesome. What if Mendoza's awesome? Then none of this is going to matter with Brady. But we keep getting evidence that Tom Brady doesn't know what he's doing as far as being the main decision maker for the Las Vegas Raiders. Won't trade. Like, what if the Patriots had made the best offer? He's not going to take it just to spite them? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. On the field, Tom Brady is Michael Jordan. The problem for the Las Vegas Raiders is that in the owner's box, right now, Tom Brady is also like Michael Jordan. Do you like the Ravens trade for Maxx Crosby? Do you like it from the Raiders' end? Do you have a problem with Tom Brady and his decision-making as the owner, the minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders? 310-840-4910, 310-840-4910, youtube.com/@the Kostos. On the other side, we will talk about the Miami Dolphins set to release quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and what it means moving forward for the Fish. And cue up the Mark Morrison.